The arrival. The distant hum of the starship's engines faded as Eric Steele stepped onto the surface of Heronia. The air was thick and humid, carrying the scent of alien vegetation. Towering trees with iridescent leaves stretched towards the planet's twin suns, their branches intertwining to form a canopy that filtered the light into a soft, ethereal glow. Eric's boots sank slightly into the moss-covered ground as he surveyed the clearing where his team had landed. The faces of his fellow expedition members reflected a mix of excitement and apprehension. They were the latest in a long line of explorers sent to unravel the mysteries of this enigmatic world. "Remember," Eric said, his voice carrying the weight of experience, "we're here to investigate and make contact. Stay alert, stay together, and trust your instincts." As the team began to set up their base camp, Eric couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. His years of interstellar missions had honed his senses, and something about the quietness of the forest set him on edge. The usual chittering and rustling one would expect in such a lush environment was conspicuously absent. As night fell, the forest came alive with bioluminescence. Glowing fungi pulsed with soft light, and floating spores drifted through the air like fireflies. It was breathtakingly beautiful, but Eric's unease only grew. "I don't like this," muttered Sarah, the team's biologist. "It's too quiet. Where are all the animals?" Before Eric could respond, a blood-curdling scream pierced the night. He spun around to see Thomas, the communications expert, being dragged into the underbrush by an unseen force. "Contact," Eric shouted, drawing his weapon. "Defensive positions." Chaos erupted as more screams filled the air. Shadowy figures moved with impossible speed through the trees, snatching team members left and right. Eric fired his laser rifle, the beam cutting through the foliage and illuminating flashes of pale skin and flowing hair. "Fall back to the ship," he ordered, but it was too late. The attack had come too swiftly, too precisely. Within moments, Eric found himself alone, surrounded by a circle of the most beautiful and terrifying beings he had ever seen. They were unmistakably female, with powerful bodies and eyes that seemed to glow with an inner light. Their skin shimmered with a faint luminescence, and their hair moved as if alive, undulating in patterns that made Eric's head spin if he looked too long. One of them stepped forward, her presence commanding and regal. "You are different," she said, her voice melodious yet tinged with surprise. "You resist." Eric's mind reeled as he realized the truth. These must be the Heronian women, the mysterious race responsible for the disappearance of so many human expeditions. He gripped his weapon tighter, knowing it would likely be futile against such overwhelming odds. "What have you done with my team?" he demanded, fighting to keep his voice steady. The leader tilted her head, studying him with curiosity. "They have been integrated, as all others before them. But you?" She took a step closer, and Eric felt an odd pressure in his mind, as if something was trying to push its way in. He gritted his teeth, focusing on maintaining his mental barriers. "Fascinating," she murmured. "You will come with us. There is much to discuss." Before Eric could protest, he felt a sharp pain in his neck as darkness crept into the edges of his vision. His last conscious thought was of the irony. He had come to Heronia to solve a mystery, only to become part of it himself. When Eric awoke, he found himself in a vast underground chamber that seemed to defy the laws of physics. The ceiling arched impossibly high, glowing with a soft, diffused light that had no apparent source. Sleek, organic-looking structures curved and flowed throughout the space, seamlessly blending technology and nature. He was lying on a raised platform, unrestrained, but surrounded by a shimmering energy field. Beyond the barrier, he could see Heronian women moving about with purpose, their movements graceful and precise. "You are awake. Good." The voice came from behind him, and Eric turned to see the leader who had spoken to him in the forest. Up close, her beauty was even more striking and unsettling. Her eyes held wisdom that seemed to span millennia, and her very presence radiated power. "I am Myra," she said, deactivating the energy field with a wave of her hand. leader of the Huronian people, and you are Eric Steele, the first human to truly intrigue us in a very long time." Eric sat up slowly, his survival instincts warring with his curiosity. "What do you want from me? Where are the others?" Myra's expression softened slightly. "Your companions are safe for now. As for what we want," she paused, considering her words carefully. "We need your help, Eric Steele. Our civilization stands on the brink of extinction, and you may be the key to our survival." Before Eric could process this revelation, another Huronian woman approached. She wore what appeared to be a form-fitting suit, covered in pulsing lights, and carried a device that looked like a cross between a tablet and a living organism. "Myra," the newcomer said, her voice tinged with excitement, "the preliminary genetic analysis is complete. It's just as we hoped. His DNA contains the markers we've been searching for." Myra nodded, a look of relief passing over her features. "Thank you, Lyra. Prepare the full briefing." She turned back to Eric, who was growing increasingly confused and wary. "I understand you have many questions," Myra said. "Come, walk with me, and I will explain why you are so important to us." As they moved through the underground city, Eric was struck by the advanced technology seamlessly integrated into every aspect of Huronian life. Holographic displays flickered to life as they passed, showing complex data streams and schematics. Vehicles that looked like living creatures glided silently through the air, ferrying Huronians to distant parts of the vast complex. "Our civilization is ancient," Myra began, her voice taking on a somber tone. "We achieved technological marvels beyond anything your people have dreamed of. We conquered disease, extended our lifespans, and even learned to manipulate the very fabric of space-time." They passed by a massive chamber, filled with rows upon rows of stasis pods, each containing a sleeping Huronian woman. Eric's unease grew as he noticed how few of the pods were actually occupied. Myra continued, "But in our pursuit of perfection, we made a grave mistake. We believed we could control every aspect of our existence, including reproduction. We developed artificial wombs and genetic engineering techniques that allowed us to create offspring with precisely chosen traits. They entered a laboratory where Lyra and other Huronian scientists were working feverishly, surrounded by holographic displays of DNA structures and complex simulations. Over time," Myra said, her voice heavy with regret, "we lost the ability to reproduce naturally. Our carefully engineered genetics became too specialized, too perfect. When we realized our error, it was almost too late." She gestured to the nearly empty stasis chamber they had passed. Eric's mind raced as he began to understand the implications. "And that's where I come in," he said slowly. "You think I can help you reproduce again?" Lyra approached, her eyes bright with a mix of hope and scientific curiosity. "Your genetic structure is unique, Eric. It contains elements that are compatible with our own, yet diverse enough to potentially break the cycle of sterility that plagues us. We've been observing your people since you first arrived on Huronia, but until now, no human has possessed the specific genetic markers we need." Eric felt a wave of conflicting emotions wash over him. On one hand, he understood the desperation of a species facing extinction. On the other, the idea of being used as a breeding tool made him deeply uncomfortable. "And what exactly are you proposing?" he asked, his voice tight with tension. Myra and Lyra exchanged glances before Myra spoke. "We are asking for your voluntary participation in our reproduction program. Your genetic material combined with ours could be the key to reviving our race." Eric took a step back, his mind reeling. "And if I refuse?" A flicker of something, regret, determination, passed across Myra's face. "Then we would be forced to proceed without your consent. The survival of our entire species is at stake, Eric. We cannot allow one individual's reluctance to condemn us to extinction." The weight of the situation crashed down on Eric. He was trapped in an alien world, the sole hope for a dying race, faced with a choice that was no real choice at all. His training had never prepared him for anything like this. I need time to think," he managed to say, his voice hoarse. Myra nodded, her expression softening slightly. Of course, we understand this is a lot to process. You will be given comfortable quarters and time to consider your decision. But please understand, Eric, time is something we have very little of. As Eric was led away to his new living space, his mind raced with the implications of what he had learned. He had come to Huronia seeking answers about disappeared expeditions, only to find himself at the center of a struggle for an entire civilization's survival. The fate of the Huronian race now rested quite literally in his hands. The dilemma. The days that followed were a whirlwind of emotions and information for Eric. He had been assigned a comfortable living space in the heart of the underground city, surrounded by the pulsating energy of Huronian life. Each morning, he awoke to the gentle hum of the city, a soft reminder that he was now a part of something much larger than himself. The walls of his quarters were adorned with bioluminescent patterns that shifted and glowed, casting an enchanting light that filled the room with a warm ambience. Despite the beauty surrounding him, Eric's heart was heavy with the weight of the choice before him. Myra and Lyra became his primary contacts, guiding him through the complexities of Huronian society and their dire situation. Each day, they would share more about their civilization's history, their technological advancements, and the catastrophic consequences of their pursuit of perfection. Their conversations would range from scientific discussions to deeply emotional confessions, as they slowly began to trust Eric with their most intimate fears and hopes. One afternoon, while walking through a vast chamber filled with holographic displays of Huronian history, Eric noticed a poignant image of a vibrant past. The display showed beautiful landscapes, bustling cities, and joyful gatherings of Huronian women. "We were once a thriving civilization," Myra said softly, her eyes reflecting a blend of nostalgia and sadness. "We lived in harmony with our environment, and our people flourished. But our advancements came at a price." Eric watched as the images flickered to dark moments, empty stasis pods, abandoned cities, and scenes of despair. "It's hard to believe," Eric admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. "You seem so advanced, so alive." Myra nodded, her expression grave. "That's the illusion we've created. We may have technology beyond your wildest dreams, but our hearts are heavy with the knowledge that our time is running out. Each day, we lose more of our kind. Every failed attempt to create viable offspring is another reminder of our impending extinction." Feeling the gravity of her words, Eric hesitated before responding. "And that's why you want me, to help you create life again." "Yes," Lyra interjected, her enthusiasm bubbling beneath her worry. "Your genetic material is the key to revitalizing our race. It holds the potential to break the cycle of sterility we face. With your help, we can combine our advanced technologies with your diverse DNA to create a new generation of Huronians capable of natural reproduction." Eric's heart raced at the thought, and conflicting emotions washed over him. The nobility of their cause was undeniable, yet the reality of being a tool for reproduction made him uneasy. "But what if I say no?" he asked, looking at Myra and Lyra with concern. "Then we will have to resort to alternative measures," Myra replied, her voice steady but laced with a hint of desperation. "Our people cannot survive without change. We would have no choice but to proceed without your consent. The very essence of our existence is at stake, Eric." He could see the fear in Myra's eyes, the burden she carried as the leader of a dying race. "You're asking me to gamble with my life and my autonomy," Eric said, his voice firm. "What if it doesn't work? What if I become just another experiment in your quest for survival?" Myra took a deep breath, her gaze unwavering. "I understand your fears, but you must know that we are not like the beings you may have encountered in the past. We cherish life above all else. We want to ensure our survival without losing our identity. Your participation would be voluntary. We will not force you. But we also cannot promise what might happen if you refuse." The weight of their plea hung in the air, and Eric felt a surge of empathy for the Huronian women. They were not merely seeking a means to an end. They were reaching out for hope, a chance to reclaim what they had lost. Yet, the thought of becoming part of a breeding program was terrifying. As he pondered his decision, Eric spent time exploring the underground city. He was amazed by the sophisticated technology that surrounded him. Holographic displays filled every corridor, showcasing their research and advancements. Eric watched in awe as Huronian scientists worked tirelessly, their fingers gliding over floating screens, analyzing genetic sequences and discussing complex theories. One day, as he wandered through a botanical garden that thrived under artificial light, he encountered Lyra. She was engrossed in examining a unique plant that shimmered with a radiant glow. "What do you think?" she asked, noticing Eric's presence. "It's one of our last successful hybrid species. We created it to withstand the environmental changes caused by our own actions." "It's beautiful," Eric replied, his eyes drawn to the plant's vibrant colors. "But it must have taken a lot of trial and error to achieve this." Lyra nodded, her expression serious. "Every success we have is built on the foundation of countless failures. It's the same with our reproductive issues. We've tried many methods, but without the right genetic diversity, we have hit a wall." Eric felt a pang of guilt as he realized the enormity of the responsibility resting on his shoulders. "I wish there was an easier way for you," he said. "I wish you didn't have to rely on me." "We are grateful for your presence, Eric," Lyra said, placing a hand on his arm. "You have a chance to be part of something greater. If you agree to help us, you will not only save our race, but also contribute to the birth of a new generation that could redefine what it means to be Huronian." The sincerity in her eyes struck a chord within Eric. He understood that this was not just about him, it was about an entire civilization. Still, he struggled with the notion of relinquishing his autonomy for the sake of others. As the days turned into weeks, Eric found himself increasingly drawn to the Huronian way of life. He learned about their culture, their art, and their connection to nature. They had an intrinsic understanding of their environment, something he admired deeply. The Huronians viewed themselves as caretakers of their planet, striving to coexist harmoniously with their surroundings. Yet, as he delved deeper into their world, he noticed divisions among them. Some Huronians were hopeful and eager to embrace the future, while others were staunch traditionalists, resistant to the idea of genetic mixing with humans. Eric could feel the tension brewing beneath the surface, the ideological battles that threatened to tear them apart even more than their dwindling population. One night, as he sat on a balcony overlooking the bioluminescent forest, Eric was approached by Myra. The night sky was painted with stars, a reminder of the vast universe beyond their struggles. "I've been thinking a lot," he said, turning to face her. "About the choice you've given me. I want to help, but I also want to ensure that I'm not just a tool in your plans." Myra regarded him with understanding. "You have every right to be cautious. Our desperation can cloud our judgment, but I assure you, we respect you and your choices. If you decide to help us, we'll ensure you are treated with dignity." Eric took a deep breath, feeling a shift in his resolve. "I want to believe that, but I also need to know that I won't lose myself in this process. If I agree, I want to be involved in every step. I don't want to be an experiment." Myra smiled softly, relief washing over her features. "That is all we ask. We want your guidance, your insight. Together, we can create a future where Huronians thrive without losing our identity." As they stood together under the stars, a sense of camaraderie began to bloom between them. Eric could feel the weight of his decision pressing down on him, but there was also a spark of hope. Perhaps this was the opportunity he needed, not just to save a dying race, but to forge a new path for humanity's connection with an alien civilization. As the days passed, Eric's decision loomed closer. Would he take the plunge into the unknown and become part of something that could change the fate of an entire species? Or would he hold back, allowing fear to dictate his actions? He knew that whatever choice he made would shape not just his future, but that of the Huronians too. In the depths of his heart, Eric hoped that whatever path he chose, it would lead to a future where both humans and Huronians could coexist, united in their quest for survival and understanding. The journey ahead was fraught with challenges, but it was one he felt increasingly prepared to face, knowing that he was not alone. The proposal. With each passing day, Eric's resolve to assist the Huronians solidified, but he felt an undeniable weight on his shoulders. This was not merely about survival, it was a chance to redefine the very fabric of their societies. As he prepared to discuss his decision with Mira and Lyra, determination coursed through him, mingling with apprehension about the implications of his choice. One morning, the vibrant glow of the bioluminescent fungi cast a soft light across the corridors of the underground city. Eric took a deep breath as he navigated the familiar paths toward the central hub, where Myra and Lyra often gathered with the scientific teams. The atmosphere buzzed with excitement. Holographic displays flared to life, showcasing complex genetic sequences and animated models of potential hybridization processes. Upon entering the hub, Eric spotted Myra animatedly discussing research with a group of scientists. The passion in her voice ignited a fire in his heart. He approached, trying to catch her attention without interrupting. When Myra finally turned to him, her eyes sparkled with anticipation. "Eric, we've made significant strides in understanding your DNA," she exclaimed, gesturing for him to join their discussion. "Your genetic markers show compatibility we've never seen before, and the implications could be monumental for our species." Before we dive into that, Eric interjected, raising his hand to pause the excitement swirling around them. "I need to share something important." The room quieted, the scientists turning their focus toward him. Myra stepped closer, her expression shifting to one of concern. "What's on your mind?" Eric took a moment to gather his thoughts, feeling the weight of their eyes upon him. "I want to help you," he began, his voice steady. "But I need to be clear. I won't be just a tool for your reproduction program. I want to be involved in every aspect of this process, ensuring that I'm not just a means to an end. If we are going to embark on this journey together, I need assurance that I won't lose my identity in the process." Myra's face softened with understanding. "We would never ask you to sacrifice who you are, Eric. Your willingness to help us is already a monumental gift. But I understand your concerns. It is our responsibility to ensure you feel valued and respected throughout this process." Lyra nodded vigorously. "Exactly. Your participation could revolutionize not only our species, but the understanding of interspecies genetics as well. We envision a partnership rather than mere utilization. You'll be treated as a collaborator, and your insights will be invaluable." Eric could see the sincerity in their eyes. The desperation he had sensed before was now tempered by a shared purpose. "Then I accept," he said, feeling a weight lift off his shoulders. "I will help you find a way forward, but I want to be part of the research team. I want to understand everything you're doing, every step of the way." The room erupted in cheers, but Eric felt a mix of excitement and fear. He was stepping into uncharted territory, not only for himself, but for both species. "What's the next step?" he asked, eager to move forward. "First, we need to conduct a series of tests," Myra explained, her tone professional yet warm. "We'll analyze your DNA in greater detail, running simulations to predict the outcomes of potential hybridization. From there, we can begin formulating a plan." As they moved deeper into the laboratory, Eric marveled at the advanced technology that surrounded him. Holographic displays projected simulations of DNA strands intertwining, revealing vibrant images of potential new life forms. Scientists operated with an ease that spoke of years of practice and dedication. Eric felt a sense of purpose enveloping him as he became part of this vibrant community. Over the next few weeks, Eric immersed himself in the research process. Myra and Lyra worked alongside him, guiding him through the complexities of Huronian genetics. They explained how their reproductive technology had advanced over the years, from artificial wombs to intricate genetic engineering techniques. Yet, despite their progress, they were painfully aware that something essential was missing: genetic diversity. Eric learned that the Huronians had tried many methods to introduce diversity back into their gene pool, but each attempt had been met with failure. The inherent complexities of that engineered biology had created a trap, one that only Eric's unique human DNA could potentially unlock. The burden of this realization weighed heavily on him, but he remained determined to contribute. One afternoon, as they sat in a laboratory filled with holographic displays of potential genetic outcomes, Laura turned to Eric, her eyes bright with enthusiasm. "We've conducted a preliminary analysis of your DNA against our own. The results are promising, but we need to push further." "What do you mean?" Eric asked, intrigued. "We need to ensure that any offspring produced from our genetic combination not only survive but thrive," Myra replied. "We'll be conducting experiments to see how your DNA interacts with ours, focusing on creating viable genetic models." Eric nodded, feeling both excitement and anxiety about the challenges ahead. "What kind of experiments?" "We'll start with simulated hybridization in controlled environments," Lyra explained. "By analyzing the genetic sequences, we can begin to predict traits and resilience. This will be the foundation of our work together." As the testing began, Eric underwent various procedures, each one more complex than the last. He felt the weight of responsibility bearing down on him with every sample taken and every analysis conducted. With each step, he grew more aware of the potential consequences, both for himself and for the Huronians. The simulations yielded fascinating results. They produced holographic images of potential hybrids, showcasing a blend of Eric's human characteristics and the alluring features of Huronian women. Myra and Lyra were thrilled with the data, their excitement palpable as they discussed the possibilities of new life forms that could emerge from their collaboration. However, as the initial joy of discovery unfolded, Eric began to sense unease among some members of the Huronian community. A faction opposed to interbreeding with humans began to voice their concerns more loudly. Whispers of dissent spread like wildfire through the city, challenging Myra's leadership and Eric's presence. One evening, Eric and Myra sat in her quarters, surrounded by the soft glow of luminescent plants. "What's happening?" Eric asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "I can feel the tension. Some Huronians are openly opposed to the idea of mixing our DNA." Myra sighed, her expression somber. "It's true. Not everyone believes in this path forward. Many feel that interbreeding with humans will dilute our heritage, that we should find a way to preserve our race as it has always been. They view our desperation as a weakness." "Is there anything we can do?" Eric asked, concern etching lines across his forehead. "We must show them the benefits of our collaboration," Myra replied, determination igniting her gaze. "We need to educate them about the potential for our survival. If we can demonstrate that this is a chance to rejuvenate our species without losing our identity, we might win them over." Eric nodded, feeling a surge of purpose. "Then let's do it. We need to open discussions, involve more voices in this process, and show them the progress we've made." As the weeks turned into a month, Eric and Myra worked tirelessly to bridge the growing divide. They organized gatherings, inviting Huronians from various backgrounds to participate in discussions about the potential benefits of interbreeding. Eric shared his experiences and knowledge, emphasizing that the goal was not to erase their identity, but to enhance their future. To their surprise, more Huronians began to show up at these gatherings, eager to learn about the scientific advancements and the possibilities that lay ahead. Eric's passion for the project became contagious, and he began to see a shift in attitudes. Yet, the dissenters were not silent. As the debate intensified, Eric encountered Zora, a prominent figure among those opposed to their plans. With her fiery spirit and strong beliefs, she confronted Eric one evening after a particularly heated discussion. "Your presence is a threat to our identity," Zora said, her voice unwavering. "You think that by blending our genes with yours, we can somehow enhance our future. You do not understand what it means to be Huronian." Eric stood his ground, feeling the weight of her words. "I understand that you want to protect your culture, Zora, but you also have to see that the alternatives lead to extinction. This is about survival." Zora scoffed, her expression fierce. Survival at what cost? To lose who we are? To become a hybrid? We were once a proud civilization, and now you wish to dilute our legacy. It's not about dilution, Eric insisted. It's about adaptation. Every civilization evolves, and sometimes that means embracing new ideas and new connections. This could be a chance for you to thrive again, not just survive. Their confrontation sparked a heated debate that lasted for hours, with Eric passionately defending the potential benefits of collaboration, while Zora rallied support from her faction. The divide grew wider, with emotions running high as Huronians found themselves torn between fear of change and hope for a brighter future. As tension mounted, Eric realized that the next steps would require not only scientific progress, but also a unifying vision. He turned to Mira and Lyra, determined to find a way to foster understanding among the Huronians and bridge the ideological chasm that threatened their survival. "Let's organize a demonstration," Eric proposed one evening, a spark of inspiration lighting up his eyes. "We can showcase our research and allow everyone to see the possibilities firsthand. Let's create a model of the potential hybrids and present it to the entire community." Myra's eyes widened with excitement. That could work. If we can visually illustrate the benefits of our collaboration, it may sway the skeptics. Lyra nodded eagerly. "We could create holographic representations of potential outcomes, demonstrating how our combined genetics can lead to thriving offspring that embody the best traits of both species." With newfound determination, Eric and the team worked tirelessly to prepare for the demonstration. They spent days crafting detailed holograms that depicted not just the biological aspects, but also the emotional and cultural dimensions of their collaboration. Eric felt invigorated by the possibility of changing minds and hearts, igniting hope for a future where both humans and Huronians could coexist. On the day of the demonstration, the central hub was filled with Huronians eager to see what the team had been working on. The atmosphere was electric with anticipation. Myra stood beside Eric, her expression a mix of hope and anxiety as they faced the crowd. "Thank you all for coming," Myra began, her voice steady despite the tension in the air. "Today, we stand on the precipice of change. We are here to demonstrate not only the potential for our survival, but also the strength that comes from collaboration." As Eric stepped forward, he could feel the eyes of the audience on him, some curious, some skeptical. "What we're proposing isn't about losing our identities," he said, his voice clear and resolute. "It's about building a future where we can thrive together, leveraging the strengths of both our species. This is our opportunity to create a new generation that embodies the best of both worlds." The holographic displays flickered to life behind them, showcasing the potential hybrids in vivid detail. Eric watched as the audience reacted, gasps of awe and disbelief rippling through the crowd. Each image demonstrated the promise of resilience, beauty, and adaptability, an invitation to a future filled with hope. As the presentation unfolded, Eric saw the expressions of the Huronians shift from skepticism to fascination. Many were captivated by the idea of creating life that carried the legacy of both species, a beautiful blending of cultures and identities. After the demonstration, a hush fell over the crowd. Zora stood at the back, her arms crossed, still resistant to the ideas being presented. But Eric could see cracks forming in her defiance, a flicker of curiosity igniting within her. As people began to mingle and discuss the possibilities, Eric felt a surge of optimism. Perhaps this was the turning point they had been waiting for, a chance to unite the Huronian community in their shared struggle for survival. But he also knew that the journey was far from over. The dissenters were still present, and it would take more than a single demonstration to change deeply rooted beliefs. Eric was ready for the challenge, prepared to stand by Myra and Lyra as they continued to fight for a future where both humans and Huronians could thrive together. Together, they were not just aiming for survival, they were creating a legacy, a narrative of resilience and cooperation that could inspire generations to come. The demonstration. As the plan for a demonstration took shape, Eric felt a surge of hope. It was not just about presenting the science. It was about fostering unity and showing the Huronians that the future did not have to be an erasure of their past, but an evolution towards something new and extraordinary. He spent hours brainstorming with Mira and Lyra, fine-tuning every detail of the event. The chosen venue was a vast chamber at the heart of the underground city, adorned with intricate murals depicting the Huronian history. It was a place where many important gatherings had taken place, and Eric hoped it would be the perfect backdrop to unveil the possibilities of their collaboration. They envisioned the chamber filled with both supporters and skeptics, creating an environment ripe for dialogue. As the day of the demonstration approached, excitement mixed with anxiety coursed through Eric. He had seen the fervor of Zora and her followers. He knew that convincing them would require more than just scientific data. They needed to feel the vision, to see themselves in this new narrative, and to understand that the essence of their identity could coexist with change. In the days leading up to the event, Eric, Myra, and Lyra worked tirelessly. They created detailed holographic projections of potential hybrid beings, showing how Eric's DNA could integrate with the Huronian genetic structure. Each model displayed traits that combined the grace of Huronian women with human characteristics, emphasizing resilience and adaptability. They carefully crafted narratives around each prototype, highlighting not only the science, but the story of survival that each potential being represented. The night before the demonstration, Eric found himself pacing in his quarters. Thoughts of Zora's fierce opposition replayed in his mind, a constant reminder of the uphill battle ahead. The sound of soft footsteps broke his contemplation. He turned to see Myra standing at the doorway, her expression gentle but determined. "Are you ready for tomorrow?" she asked, her voice soothing. Eric sighed, running a hand through his hair. "I don't know. What if it doesn't go as planned? What if they reject it outright?" Myra stepped closer, her eyes unwavering. "You've done everything you can. Remember, this is not just about you or even us. It's about our future. You're giving them a chance to see a possibility they never imagined. No matter what happens, you're showing courage by standing up for what you believe in." Her words resonated with him, grounding him in purpose. "You're right. This is our chance to unite. I just hope they can see it." The following day, the chamber filled rapidly as Huronians from all walks of life gathered. Some arrived with hopeful expressions, while others wore frowns of skepticism. Eric stood backstage with Mira and Lyra, heart racing. He could hear murmurs, the tension palpable in the air as the crowd settled. Finally, Myra stepped onto the platform, her presence commanding. "Welcome, everyone. Thank you for being here today," she began, her voice ringing with authority. "We are gathered to discuss a path forward for our people, a path that embraces both our heritage and the potential for a new beginning. Today, we will share the groundbreaking work we've done alongside Eric Steele, the first human to collaborate with us." As she spoke, Eric took a deep breath, stepping into view beside her. The murmurs grew louder, and he could sense the weight of their scrutiny. He tried to remain composed, channeling the courage that Myra had inspired in him. "Thank you, Myra," Eric said, his voice steady. "Today, we want to share not only the science, but also the hope that comes with it. For too long, we have felt the weight of extinction looming over us, but we can change that narrative together." The crowd listened intently as Eric and Mira unveiled the holographic projections of the potential hybrids. One by one, they displayed various models, showcasing the traits that could emerge from the combination of human and Huronian DNA. As each model appeared, Eric described the unique advantages each new being could bring to their society: enhanced resilience, adaptability, and an extraordinary blend of intellect and intuition. "Imagine a new generation," Eric continued, his voice rising with conviction. "One that can thrive in environments we've never explored. One that can adapt to changes in our ecosystem while maintaining the essence of who we are. This is not just about survival, it's about rebirth." The reactions from the crowd were mixed. Some Huronians nodded in agreement, visibly intrigued by the possibilities. Others, however, remained skeptical, whispering among themselves. Eric noticed Zora standing at the back of the chamber, arms crossed, her expression fierce and unyielding. As the demonstration continued, Myra and Lyra stepped in to provide further details about their research. They discussed the rigorous testing protocols they had established, showcasing data and analysis that demonstrated the potential viability of the hybrids. The holographic displays morphed into interactive models, allowing members of the audience to explore the genetic intricacies firsthand. Eric seized the opportunity to address the skeptics directly. "I understand that change is frightening," he said, his gaze sweeping across the audience. "But we must ask ourselves, what is the cost of inaction? How long can we stand by as our numbers dwindle? This is not merely about mixing genes. It's about hope, about future generations that can carry on our legacy." Zora finally stepped forward, her voice piercing through the crowd. "You speak of hope, Eric, but at what price? Our culture has flourished for millennia without your interference. Why should we compromise our identity for a mere chance at survival?" Eric met her gaze, determined to respond with sincerity. "Zora, I respect your passion for our heritage, but this is not about compromising who you are. It's about evolving into something stronger. Would you rather cling to a fading legacy or embrace the possibility of a thriving future? By working together, we can preserve the core of your identity while adapting to ensure that future generations can exist." The crowd was silent, the tension thick as they processed his words. Eric could see expressions of contemplation spreading through the audience, doubt mixing with curiosity. He took a step closer to the center of the platform, feeling the weight of the moment. "I believe in you, in the resilience of the Huronian spirit," he continued. "Together we can redefine what it means to be Huronian. We have the opportunity to craft a narrative that combines the best of both our worlds. We can emerge not just as survivors, but as pioneers." As Eric spoke, he noticed a flicker of uncertainty in Zora's eyes. The ferocity that had characterized her demeanor began to wane as she considered the possibilities. However, before she could respond, a new voice cut through the air. One of the scientists from Myra's team stepped forward, an unexpected ally. "I've been following this research closely," he said, his voice steady. "Eric's right. We need to consider all options for survival. Our technology has been impressive, but we have reached a point where innovation must be paired with genetic diversity. We owe it to ourselves to explore this path." The scientists' support shifted the dynamic, and murmurs of agreement rippled through the crowd. Eric could feel the tide turning, the seeds of change beginning to take root. He exchanged a glance with Myra, who smiled with encouragement, her confidence returning. With renewed energy, Eric continued to share stories of resilience and adaptation from both human and Huronian histories, drawing parallels that resonated with the audience. Adaptation is not a sign of weakness, it's a testament to our strength. Our ancestors faced challenges that seemed insurmountable, yet they persevered. We can do the same by embracing new ideas and new partnerships. As he spoke, he saw more faces begin to soften, hope flickering in their expressions. Zora, however, remained stoic, her brow furrowed as she grappled with the enormity of the change being proposed. Eric knew that winning her over would take more than just rhetoric. "We have the power to write our own story," Eric concluded, his voice filled with conviction. "Let's make it a story of collaboration, of hope, and of thriving in the face of adversity. We can turn fear into strength and create a future that honors both our legacies." As the demonstration came to an end, the applause was tentative at first, but grew in strength as more members of the audience joined in. Eric felt a rush of adrenaline, a sense of accomplishment mixed with uncertainty. They had opened a dialogue, and the future was still unwritten. However, the challenge was far from over. Eric knew that while he had managed to spark interest and intrigue, Zora and her faction would not back down easily. The real test lay ahead, convincing the skeptics that change was not just possible but essential for their survival. As the crowd began to disperse, Myra turned to Eric, her expression proud yet contemplative. "You did well today, Eric. You reach them, even if only a few. The real work begins now. I hope it's enough, he replied, his heart still racing. We need to find a way to bridge this divide. Myra nodded, her resolve returning. We will. But we need to prepare for what comes next. Zora won't give up easily, and there will be those who resist. As they walked through the bustling hallways of the underground city, Eric felt the enormity of their task ahead. The road to unity would be filled with obstacles, but he was determined to see it through, for the sake of both his species and the Huronian race. The challenge ahead. In the days following the demonstration, the atmosphere in the underground city was a tumultuous blend of hope and tension. The applause from the gathering still echoed in Eric's ears, a bittersweet reminder of the fragile bridge they had begun to build between humans and Huronians. While some embraced the idea of collaboration, others remained staunchly opposed, with Zora and her faction leading the charge against the potential union. As Eric moved through the city, he sensed the divide deepening. Conversations that had once been light and filled with curiosity were now punctuated by whispers of dissent. Some Huronians, emboldened by Zora's rhetoric, openly questioned the ethics of interbreeding with humans. What if our identity is lost forever? One voice echoed as Eric walked by. The questions weighed heavily on him, forcing him to confront the implications of their undertaking. Eric, Lyra called out, her voice breaking through his thoughts as she rushed to catch up with him. I've just analyzed the data from the demonstration. The initial feedback is promising, but we need to act quickly before dissenters gain more ground. What do you suggest? Eric asked, concern knitting his brow. We need to hold a series of smaller discussions, she replied, her eyes sparkling with determination. These meetings should allow for open dialogue, giving people the chance to voice their concerns in a safe environment. If we can address their fears directly, we may be able to sway them to our side. Eric nodded, appreciating Lyra's proactive approach. That sounds like a good plan. We can also invite people from both sides, supporters and skeptics, to foster understanding. Let's make it clear that we are open to discussion. With renewed purpose, they organized the first meeting for the following week. Lyra worked tirelessly to reach out to various members of the community, ensuring they were well informed about the event. Eric joined her, meeting with both allies and skeptics, trying to build momentum for their cause. The response was mixed. Some Huronians expressed eagerness to engage, while others remained deeply entrenched in their opposition. As the meeting day arrived, Eric felt a mix of excitement and anxiety. The chosen venue was a large auditorium adorned with symbols of Huronian culture, a reminder of the rich history they shared. Eric stood at the front, glancing at the seats filled with familiar faces and new ones, all awaiting the discussions that would unfold. Myra opened the meeting, her presence commanding as she welcomed everyone. Thank you all for coming. Today we are here to discuss our future together. We understand that many of you have concerns regarding our proposed collaboration with Eric Steele and the potential for interbreeding. We want to hear your voices and address any fears you may have. As Myra spoke, Eric observed the crowd's reactions. Zora was present, sitting toward the back, arms crossed, her expression skeptical. He took a deep breath, feeling the weight of expectation pressing down on him. I want to thank you all for being here, Eric said, stepping forward. This is an opportunity for us to engage in a meaningful dialogue. I understand that change can be frightening, and I respect the deep-rooted values of your culture. But I urge you to consider the potential for a future that honors both our identities. Voices began to rise from the audience, some in agreement, others in protest. You don't understand what it means to be Huronian. Zora's voice cut through the murmur, drawing attention. Our culture is our strength. Why should we dilute it with foreign blood? Eric met her gaze, feeling the tension in the room thicken. Zora, I understand your fears, but we are not suggesting that you abandon your identity. Instead, we propose an evolution, one that allows for adaptation in the face of adversity. Would you rather cling to a heritage that may fade away, or embrace the possibility of survival? The audience erupted into a mix of applause and discontent, the divide more pronounced than ever. Eric knew they had to navigate this carefully. He glanced at Mira and Lyra, both of whom nodded encouragingly. Lyra stepped forward, her voice calm yet firm. Let's take a moment to discuss what we've learned. We've seen data that shows how genetic diversity can bolster resilience. Nature itself adapts and evolves. Why shouldn't we? Eric watched as several members of the audience began to engage with her points, nodding thoughtfully. Encouraged, he pressed on. We have a chance to create a new lineage, one that combines the strengths of both species. Imagine a new generation that embodies the best of what we both represent. That's not dilution, that's empowerment. As the discussion continued, Eric encouraged those who supported the collaboration to share their thoughts. One Huronian woman named Talia stood up, her voice trembling slightly. I've lost so many friends to this decline, she confessed. I want to believe that there's hope. I want to fight for our future. Her words resonated deeply within the crowd, prompting murmurs of agreement. Eric seized the moment. That's precisely why we're here. To find a way to ensure that our people survive and flourish together. But Zora was not finished. And what of the risks? What if this hybridization leads to unforeseen consequences? We could endanger our entire race by inviting human DNA into our gene pool. Eric felt a knot form in his stomach as he recognized the fear that underpinned her words. I understand your concerns, Zora, but I assure you that our research is thorough. We are committed to conducting all necessary tests and ensuring that any path we take is rooted in science and care. We can monitor every step of the process and make adjustments as needed. As the discussions unfolded, the atmosphere shifted. Skeptics began to voice their concerns, asking questions that allowed for constructive dialogue rather than hostility. They discussed the implications of hybridization, the potential for maintaining their cultural identity, and the importance of forging a future where both species could coexist. In that moment, Eric realized the power of communication. While there would always be dissenters, the conversations allowed for understanding, and many were beginning to see the vision he and Mira had for a collaborative future. However, Zora remained unconvinced. After several hours of discussion, she stood once more, her voice sharp. You talk of empowerment, yet you fail to address the core of what makes us Huronian. Our culture is sacred, and I fear that by embracing the unknown, we risk losing everything we hold dear. The room fell silent, the weight of her words lingering in the air. Eric felt a pang of frustration, but also a surge of empathy. Zora was not just a voice of opposition, she was a guardian of a legacy that mattered deeply to her. Zora, I respect your passion for your culture, Eric said, his tone steady. But this isn't about discarding our traditions. It's about creating a new chapter in our history. The heart of Huronian identity can still thrive alongside evolution. He took a deep breath, wanting to appeal to her sense of duty. Imagine a future where your children can experience the best of both worlds. They could inherit not only the beauty of Huronian culture, but also the resilience that comes from diversity. Wouldn't that be a legacy worth fighting for? Zora's expression shifted slightly, the flicker of doubt evident in her eyes. She turned to look at the crowd, witnessing the mixed reactions of support and skepticism. Eric could sense the internal battle raging within her. The meeting continued, and as the hours passed, Eric and his team worked tirelessly to bridge the gap between opposing views. They focused on facts, data, and shared stories, showcasing how adaptation had been a vital part of survival throughout history. Slowly, the tide began to shift in their favor, and Eric saw hope glimmering in the faces of those who had once been resolute in their opposition. As the event concluded, Eric stepped off the stage, feeling a mixture of exhaustion and exhilaration. He glanced at Mira and Lyra, who wore expressions of pride and determination. We did it, he said, breathless. For now, Myra replied, a smile tugging at her lips. But there's still much work to be done. Zora and her faction will continue to push back. I know, Eric said, his resolve hardening. but we've shown them that there is a future worth fighting for. If we can keep this momentum going, we might just change the tide." In the weeks that followed, Eric and the team continued to host discussions and workshops, creating a platform for Huronians to voice their concerns and share their hopes. They provided data, engaged in dialogue, and celebrated small victories together. Yet, despite their progress, Zora remained a formidable opponent, and her faction grew restless. They began to organize protests, rallying support against what they saw as a threat to their culture. The tension in the air was palpable, and Eric could feel the pressure mounting as their opposing views clashed. One evening, as Eric and Mayra reviewed the latest data, Zora stormed into the lab, her expression furious. "You continue to push your agenda without regard for the consequences," she shouted, her voice echoing off the walls. "You've convinced some, but many of us still see this as a betrayal of our identity." Eric stood his ground, refusing to be intimidated. "We're not trying to erase your identity, Zora. We're offering a chance to evolve and survive. We can work together to preserve what's essential while also adapting to the realities we face." "You don't understand what it means to be Huronian," she shot back, her eyes blazing. "You come into our world, thinking you know what's best for us.